Let's see what compound interest or interest compounded is. To see what compound interest is, let's first take an example and calculate interest year by year, or let's just say period by period, and then learn how compound interest is calculated. So here is the example. 1000 rupees at the interest rate of 10% per annum for 3 years. Annum means year, per annum means per year. So the principal is 1000 rupees and the interest rate is 10%. So in the first year, you can see here in the table that the principal is 1000 rupees and with 10% the interest would be 100 rupees. And year end amount is 1000 plus 100 equals 1100 rupees. So 1100 rupees is the amount at the year end. So this part is just like the simple interest part. The way we have calculated simple interest before, this calculation is exactly like that. But in case of compound interest, for the second year, what we do is we take the year end amount of the first year and treat that as principal for the second year. So in the second year, the principal is not 1000, but it is 1000 plus interest, that is 1100. Now the interest for this year is calculated on this 1100. So 10% of 1100 is 110. So the interest is 110 and the year end amount for the second year is 1210. So in case of the third year, the principal is the amount from the previous year, which is 1210. And now we calculate interest on this principal. So 10% of this is 121 and therefore the year end amount now is 1331. We are going to stop here because we are doing this example only for 3 years. If we were to do it for more number of years, then we would have continued the calculation. So let's see how we did all the calculation. The first step is calculate interest for the first year or for the first period. Every time when I say year, I also want to say period, because sometimes the interest rate is not per year, but it could be per month or per 6 months. So I just want to make sure that we don't think that it is always a year. It could be any defined period. The second step is add the interest to the principal to get the year end amount. And the third step is the year end amount of the year of this year is the principal of the next year. This is how we calculate compound interest. So if you look at how we have calculated, you can see that the interest is charged not only on the principal but also on the interest. That means compound interest is really paying interest on the interest along with interest on the principal. That's why the next year's principal is the addition of the principal and the interest of previous year, because here you are paying interest on the principal as well as on the interest. This kind of interest calculation is called as compound interest or interest compounded. Now let's think how it is different from simple interest. What if we were calculating simple interest? How would it look? For the first year, it would look exactly the same. It would look like this. Principal is 1000, interest is 100, year end amount is 1100. For the second year, the principal is still 1000. See, the principal in case of simple interest does not change. And since the principal is the same, the interest is also going to be 100 rupees. So the interest is also the same. Since the principal doesn't change, the interest doesn't change either. And now the year end amount is 1200 That is because we have taken the interest of this year as well as the previous year into consideration. In case of the third year, the principal is again 1000 rupees, the interest is again 100 rupees, and the year end amount, that means the amount so far, is 1300 rupees. So now you can see the difference between the simple interest and the compound interest calculation. The compound interest calculation that we have done here is not that difficult. It's a simple calculation, but it's a long calculation. It's a long and a tiresome calculation. We just calculated here for 3 years. What if the period was 8 years or 10 years? That would be a very long and exhaustive calculation. So you may wonder, is there a formula? Is there a simple way to calculate this? Yes, there is a formula. And the formula looks like this. A equals P multiplied by 1 plus R over 100, the whole thing to the power of N. And we know that A equals amount, P is principal, R is rate of interest, and N means number of years or number of periods. So this is the formula for the amount of compound interest. That means the formula is for the amount, not for the interest. Is there a formula to calculate compound interest? Not really. The formula is for calculating the amount. Then how do you calculate the interest? It's simple. You subtract principal from the amount and then you will get the compound interest. So CI here stands for the compound interest. Compound interest equals amount minus principal, and you have the formula for the amount which is written here. How is this formula derived? We can see that in another video. We'll learn how this formula is derived. But for now, it is important to remember this formula because this formula is very important to solve any compound interest problems.